Smash the like button and destroy the subscribe button, and you will join our family.
What are your funniest NSFW jokes? The new Marine captain was assigned to a recon company in a remote post in the desert. During his first inspection, he noticed a camel hitched up behind the mess tent. He asks the first sergeant why the camel is kept there. "Well, sir," is the nervous reply, "as you know, there are 250 men here and no women. And sir, sometimes the men have urges. That's why we have the camel, sir." The captain says, "I can't say that I condone this, but I understand about urges. So the camel can stay." About a month later, the captain starts having a real problem with his own urges. Crazy with passion, he asks the first sergeant to bring the camel to his tent. Putting a stool behind the camel, the captain stands on it, pulls down his pants, and has wild, insane sex with the camel. When he is done, he asks the first sergeant, "Is that how the men do it?" No sir," the first sergeant replies. "They usually just ride the camel into town where the girls are." An Australian is in New Zealand working on a sheep farm with a bunch of Kiwis. After a couple weeks, he goes to one of them and says, "Hey mate, where are all the girls at? I haven't been late in ages." The Kiwi says the nearest girl is 3 hours away. "What we do here when we get in the mood is head down to the paddock, pick us out a sheep and give it a good rooting." The Aussie is naturally disgusted, but as the weeks go by he grows more and more desperate. Finally he sneaks down to a secluded paddock, creeps up on a sheep, drops true and starts going to town. Almost immediately he hears all the other farm hands laughing behind him, trying to quickly pull his pants back up. He yells, "I thought you guys all did it." "We do," replied one of the Kiwis, "but you picked the ugly one." Man was going down on his wife when he stops and says, "Geez, you've got a big pussy. Geez, you've got a big pussy." Wife says, "Why did you say it twice?" "I didn't." 3 men get stranded on a desert island. After wandering around a while, they are found by some tribesmen. The natives take them back to their hut. The chief tells them, "Go out into the jungle and collect 10 pieces of fruit." The first guy returns with 10 apples. And the chief says, "Now shove them all up your ass without showing any emotion, or we'll kill you." He shoves the first up, and is in terrible pain, but shows no emotion. But during the process of pushing up the second, he flinches, and therefore gets shot. The second guy comes back with 10 cherries, and gets told to do the same. He's finding it relatively easy. But when he gets to the 8th, starts laughing hysterically, and gets shot. He meets up with the first guy in heaven, and the first guy asks, "Why did you do that? Why did you laugh?" And the second guy replies, "Well, I nearly finished when I saw the next guy walking up with 10 pineapples." A man buys a pack of condoms at the pharmacy. The pharmacist says, "Large pack." "Huh." The guy buying says, "Yeah, I'm meeting my girlfriend's parents tonight. After dinner when we go home we'll be getting it on." Later at the dinner, the guy is praying before he eats his food. His girlfriend says, "I didn't know you were religious." The guy replies, "I didn't know your dad was a pharmacist. I felt unwell so went to the doctor. He said, 'Well, you're going to have to stop masturbating.' I said, 'Why is that?' He said, 'Because I'm trying to take your temperature.'" A priest is checking into a hotel and says to the front desk clerk, "I hope the pornography on the TV is disabled." The clerk responds, "No. It's regular porn, you sick peep." What did the lesbian vampire say to the other lesbian vampire? Same time next month. What do you do if your wife starts smoking? Slow down and use some lubricant. A guy and a girl meet up in a hospital elevator. The girl says, I'm here to give blood. They give me 10 every time I give blood. What are you here for? The man says, I'm here to donate semen. They give me 50 every time I donate. They go their separate ways until a week later when the man sees the girl rushing for the elevator. He holds the door open for her until she gets in. Here to donate blood again? He asks. She shakes her head. Mm. What did the elephant ask the naked man? How do you breathe out of that thing? What do elephants use for tampons? Sheep. Why do elephants have a trunk? Because sheep don't have strings. Father comes home and little Johnny comes running in tears. Dad. Dad. Sparky died. I came home and he was lying on his back with his feet in the air. Dad tries to find the right words. Eventually explains Sparky is reaching up so Jesus can reach down and take him to heaven. Johnny mulls this over. It makes sense and he feels better. Weeks later. Johnny comes running out in a state of panic. Dad. Dad. Mommy almost died today. Oh my God. What happened? I came home early from school and heard moaning. Mommy was on her back with her feet in the air screaming Jesus. I'm coming. And if it wasn't for Uncle Bobby holding her down, we would have lost her for sure. My girlfriend tried to make me have sex on the hood of her Honda Civic. I refused. If I'm going to have sex, it's going to be on my own accord. Man walks by a shop. There is a sign out front that says, cheese sandwiches 1. Hand jobs 5. So he walks in. Sees a beautiful blonde standing behind the counter. He asks, are you the woman who gives the hand jobs? She says, why yes I am, in a very flirty tone. He says, well wash them hands and make me a cheese sandwich. My colleague can no longer attend next week's innuendo seminar. I have to fill her slot instead. What happens when you mix human DNA with goat DNA? You get kicked out of the petting zoo. Mickey and Minnie Mouse are at a divorce court. Lawyer. So Mickey. It says you want to divorce Minnie because she's extremely silly. Mickey. No. I said she was beeping goofy. 3 men are at the gates of heaven. Saint Peter says heaven is a big place. And you'll need a vehicle to get around. You'll get one based on how faithful you were to your partner. The first man says, in our 4 decades of marriage, never once was I even attracted to another woman. I was only faithful to my wife. Saint Peter gives him a Rolls Royce. The second man says, well, sometimes I had a few one-night stands. But I still love my wife. And never lapsed any time else. Saint Peter gives him a moderately expensive car. The third man says, I'm sorry to say this, but I was incredibly unfaithful. I had affairs every week. He gets a bicycle. The 3 men meet a few minutes later. The first guy is crying. The second man asks, why are you crying? You have a Rolls Royce? And the first guy says, well, I just saw my wife riding by on a skateboard. A young Greek couple are about to get married, and before the nuptials, the young woman's mother pulls her aside for a quick chat. Now you're about to be married, begins the mother. Greek men are known to prefer sex in a very specific way, so at some point, he may ask you to turn around. I want you to know that it's okay to say no if you don't want to do it that way. The wedding day comes and goes, and there's no turnaround request from her new husband. No request on the honeymoon nor through their first year. No special request for their first anniversary. Or their second. Halfway through their 3rd year, her husband says, you want. You can turn around and we can try this a different way. The woman says, no no no. My mother warned me that this day might come and she told me I never have to do that if I don't want to. The husband replies, that's fine with I thought you wanted kids one day. Bill worked in a pickle factory. He had been employed there for a number of years when he came home one day to confess to his wife that he had a terrible compulsion. He had an urge to stick his penis into the pickle slicer. His wife suggested that he should see a sex therapist to talk about it. But Bill indicated that he'd be too embarrassed. He vowed to overcome the compulsion on his own. One day a few weeks later, Bill came home absolutely ashen. His wife could see at once that something was seriously wrong. "What's wrong, Bill?" she asked. "Do you remember that I told you how I had this tremendous urge to put my penis into the pickle slicer?" "Oh, Bill. You didn't." "Yes, I did." "My God. Bill. What happened?" "I got fired." "No. Bill. I mean, what happened with the pickle slicer?" "Got fired too." One night, as a couple lay down for bed, the husband gently taps his wife on the shoulder and starts rubbing her arm. The wife turns over and says, "I'm sorry, honey. I've got a gynecologist appointment tomorrow and I want to stay fresh." The husband, rejected, turns over and tries to sleep. A few minutes later, he rolls back over and taps his wife again. This time he whispers in her ear, "Do you have a dentist appointment tomorrow too?" Sex is like playing bridge. If you don't have a good partner, you better have a good hand. Me. Do you know the difference between a blowjob and a Big Mac? Them. No. Me. Want to have lunch? What does a horny frog say? Rub it? A man is standing naked on a street corner. A cop walks up and tells him, "Sir, you can't be doing that here unless you have a good excuse. I am going to take you to jail." "Yes sir, I have a good excuse. I was at my girlfriend's apartment. We started drinking. Next thing you know she jumps up and says, 'Let's get naked and go to town.' I guess I beat her here." What do the Pope and a Christmas tree have in common? The balls are just for decoration. A guy walks up to a whorehouse. There's a sign on it that says, "We're closed. Beat it." Sister Claire and Sister Teresa are driving down a desert highway when the devil appears on their hood, making threatening gestures. "Quick," Sister Teresa says. "Show him your cross." Sister Claire leans out the window, shouting, "Piss off, you bastard. I'll kick you in the beeping balls if you try that speep again. Don't mess with me, you prick." A young man walks up and sits down at the bar. "What can I get you?" The bartender inquires. "I want 6 shots of Jägermeister," responded the young man. "6 shots? Are you celebrating something?" "Yeah. My first blowjob." "Well, in that case, let me give you a 7th on the house. No offense, sir. But if 6 shots won't get rid of the taste, nothing will." A man walks into a bar and orders 10 shots of whiskey. The bartender lines them up, and the man drinks shots 2 through 9. The bartender asks, "Why did you drink them like that?" The man replies, "The first one always tastes terrible, and the last one always gives me such a headache." Tiger Woods goes to Japan for a golf tournament. The night before, he hires a prostitute. As they are having sex, the prostitute is shouting, "Hoshimoto." Tiger doesn't know any Japanese, but he figures she is saying she is satisfied. The next day at the tournament, on the 18th hole, Tiger makes a hole-in-one. The crowd starts cheering for him, but he can't thank them because he doesn't know Japanese except for what the prostitute said. So he blurts out, "Hoshimoto." The crowd becomes confused by what he just said. So one of his Japanese friends walks up to him and says, "What do you mean wrong hole? What do a coffin and a condom have in common? They both hold stiffs. Only one's coming and one's going.